if you spend a lot of your life perfecting your skills to be a cirque performer, then why can you not use the same drive to perfect your skills in something else? Like, I think anybody can do anything. So yeah, I was scared I was going to kill somebody pretty much. But yeah, so you just gotta perform and look like you belong and look like you know what you're doing, even though in my head I was like, oh my God, what am I doing? You have to be confident, but deep down, you're not sure. But it's all about like, like putting yourself out there and trying. Like, what's the worst that's gonna happen? You're gonna fail and it's okay. Like, you're gonna learn anyway and try again.
Welcome to Recast and Rise, the podcast for performers and creatives ready to explore what's next. You'll hear inspiring stories of artists who reinvented themselves and found new careers after the stage. Let's recast and rise. Chantale, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yes, thank you for being here. So, Chantale, you were a Cirque du Soleil performer for many, many years, and you are now a nurse. This is a very impressive career transition, and I want to hear all about it. But first, tell us about what you were doing as a performer.
So I was a synchronized swimmer in O for 17 years, a very long time. So I came to Vegas. I was 19 years old. And yeah, I stayed all those years in Cirque swimming in O. Loved it. Loved every moment of it.
Amazing. So tell us more. So you would swim your entire life? Is that
Yeah,
right?
yeah. So I come from a competition background. I was on the national team for 5 years. And then O was just starting when I came here in 1999, and I was very curious about performing, and I thought I would be here for maybe a year or two, and then go back to competing, and maybe try for the Olympic. But I just love performing and love the show that I just stayed and made my life here, and yeah,
And here we are.
yes.
Was becoming a nurse always part of the plan?
Nope, not at all. Actually, I didn't know what I wanted to be when I grew up. Like, I didn't like we went to Cégep. I'm from Quebec, and I didn't like Cégep whatsoever. So as soon as I had the opportunity to apply for Cirque and come work for Cirque, I just jumped on this occasion. I love synchronized swimming. That was my passion. So I just didn't know what I wanted to do. So being in the show for many years, and then I got married, and then started to have some kids, and it's just when you work in Cirque, you're surrounded with like girls, like we were a bunch of swimmers, other discipline as well, and just talking to everybody about like my birding experience, and actually my second kid, the birth process was very frustrating. And so I just wanted to share like what to do with everybody and what not to do and how to get prepared. And after a while, I was like, oh, maybe that's what I should be doing. And that's how I got the idea of becoming a nurse. And in the, my main goal was maybe to become a midwife as well, like, or do like labor and delivery. That was my dream when I started to study to become a nurse.
Great. That's wonderful. I
Yep.
love that. I love that being with obviously as we know, being in the dressing rooms, being surrounded
Mhm.
by all the other girls that probably had similar stories, or at least had some bird stories, maybe not similar, but um, and then you decided that that was something you wanted to pursue. This is great. And what steps did you take to become a nurse?
So I started to do all my prerequisite classes first. So that was done like part-time online. Also like was performing and had two kids, so I did it like not slowly. It took about 2 years to do all my prerequisite. And after I was done, then I did the nursing program, which was full time and a little bit more intense, where all you do is really like nursing. You have like clinical, you have labs and all of that. And then
Yeah.
I graduated after those 2 years. So it took me about 4 years to get my nursing degree. and then I did my exam and I become a registered nurse.
That is so wonderful. A lot of work, a lot of sacrifices,
Yes.
I'm assuming, correct? Because you were doing this
Yes.
while performing, right?
Yeah.
All of
Yeah.
this
I
with two
was,
kids.
yes, exactly. My kids were in elementary school. My husband was working during the day, so I would like find ways to study, and I had like a great group of girls also like at Cirque, which is like cheer me on, and like they were like my biggest supporter, and I did even practice some of my nursing skills on them while I was in school. So it's just great. Yeah.
And did you have any fear or doubts when it was time for you to transition? And also, how did you know it was time to transition?
When you get in Cirque at some point, you're gonna have to change career. It's not something you can do until you're 65, of course, when you're on stage. And after I had my kids, I started to get injuries. So, the process to go back in the show at that time was way different than it is now. So a couple of injuries happened, and so it makes you think, okay, well, maybe I needed to look at to do something else. And yes, it was scary, and I was especially when I was doing all my clinicals. You're taking care of real human being. So for the first time, you have to do all your nursing skills on
Yeah.
people that are in the hospital, not at their best, and so yeah, I was scared I was gonna kill somebody pretty much. But yeah, so you just gotta perform and look like you belong and look like you know what you're doing, even though in my head I was like, oh my God, what am I doing? Like, but you have to go through it, and people are really nice, and they know you're a student, so they're a little bit more
Yeah.
accepting or accommodating, I would say. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And let's talk about the schedule. So, for someone that is interested, in becoming a nurse while performing, or
Hmm.
even after performing, so how did you manage the schedule? So, you obviously went to school during the day,
Yep.
um, and then how was it for you to squeeze in everything, like the rehearsals, all the things that we know Cirque requires as far as
Yeah.
dress rehearsal, all the things, right? You integrate a new artist in the show, all of that. How did you manage that part with going to school?
Yeah, well, the good thing is some of the prerequisite classes were online, so that gives you a lot more flexibility. And then when I did the nursing program, the classes were during the day, during the week. So I would go to school during the day, and then at night I would go perform. And luckily, all the clinical were on Mondays, and we were off at that point on Monday, Tuesday, so that was perfect. So I spend 12 hours at the hospital on a Monday doing my clinicals, and then uh, at Tuesday to recover, and then Wednesday back at work.
Hmm.
So it worked out
Yes.
good, and I had my very supporting husband, and kids understood what I was doing, and they were, you know,
Yeah.
working with me, and yeah.
One thing that I like to ask to people like you that went through a career change while performing, going to school, all of that, you need to have a good support system. So you just talked about the girls in the dressing room and your husband. Tell me a little bit about that support system that probably was really helpful.
Yeah, it was everything actually. Everybody knew what I was doing. I was very open, and even like physio, they knew about it. They would like sometimes I would ask them question. My mom came a couple of times, to watch the kids to give me more time to study. I would study in the dressing room and like just put my earphones on and study, and like people already were like questioning me when I had an exam. So it was a group effort. Everybody helped me, and I did it, and I was
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
rewarding, very proud
Oh,
of going through that. Yeah.
so wonderful. I can only imagine everyone's supporting you in the dressing room. Go, 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 Chantale.
Yeah.
All right. So you were a nurse, and then I do know also that you transitioned into another career after that. So now we're talking about a second
Yeah.
career change. So can you tell us about that one?
Yeah.
That second
And
career
actually,
change?
Yes, actually, that's something maybe like when you transition, I think it's important to be open-minded and be able to adapt to different situation, and because you have a plan, but sometime it divert a bit, which is what happened to me. So as a family, we decided to move back to Quebec, and so I had my RN license here in Nevada. I moved to Quebec, transfer everything there, and I got the news that they didn't accept all my schooling, and I had to go back to school and do more tests. They made it very difficult for me to start working in a hospital in Quebec. So at that point, one of my sister was working for an insurance company, and she said, they hire nurses, so why don't you uh, apply, and at least you could work, still use your knowledge, but work in a different setting that you don't need a license to be able to work for their insurance company. So that's what I did. And then I started to work as a case manager, which was totally different. It was an office job, and uh, very scary. I had to work on a computer, learn to type, I knew how to use a computer, of course, for school, but I was totally different. I was more talking on the phone with the insured people. It wasn't like face to face like I was used to with nursing school. So it was very different, but I learned a lot actually. So and yeah, and after this I had another kid. So that came into play, and I started to work from home. COVID happened, so then we worked from home 100% of the time, which made it a lot easier for my family
Mhm.
as well.
Yeah.
Having three kids, then when you're a mom, you want to have a little bit more flexibility. So it turned out to be kind of a good thing. Yeah, but now we're back in Vegas. I just got my license, my RN license back a couple months ago. So now I'm thinking, what next? Maybe I'll transition back to something else.
Okay, great. So there's a lot to unpack here. You were in
Mhm.
Quebec, not able to get your license. It was a bit difficult to
Yeah.
be a nurse over there. And then you transitioned and then as a case manager. So when you applied for that case manager job, were you still in Canada?
Yeah.
Or you had moved? Okay, so you were able, obviously, because you're Canadian, you were able to apply
Mhm.
in Canada and find a
Yeah.
job there. And then you moved back here in the US like recently. What made you decide to come back here? Like work or family or?
Yeah, a lot of different things. COVID in Canada was very
Mhm.
restrictive, and before COVID, I wanted to move back to Vegas, and my kids weren't really ready to move back, so we waited a couple years. And at that point, I'm like, okay, let's move back. Everybody was on board. We came back here, and my supervisor at the time asked me, "Do you still want to work for us? If you want to, we have a sister company in the States. So if you want to transition to our sister company, we'd love to keep you on board." So I'm like, sure, I'd love that. So we moved back to Vegas, but I actually kept my job. I still work with all the Canadian team, but I get paid by the US company now. So yeah, so
Wow.
I was very lucky. They've never really done that before, but they were able to accommodate me and do this. So yeah.
If you are a performer wondering what's next for me, let's connect. Book a call with me, send me a message, or visit my website where you can find more tips and tricks to navigate your career change. And don't forget to subscribe to this podcast for more inspiring stories and career tools. Now, back to our chat. First of all, congratulations, because being able to find work, right, in a completely different field, and now also work for a company that's also allowing you to transition and work in a different country, that
Hmm.
is not common. This is yeah,
Yeah.
congratulations. This is great.
Thank you.
Great career.
Yeah.
So when you say that when you started to work as a case manager, you had to learn skills, obviously typing, computer, all of that. So
Yeah.
I'd love to hear about that transition and that process of interviewing and having to, sell, quote unquote, sell yourself
Mhm.
as a complete
Yeah.
different person with different skills. And you were not a swimmer, obviously. You're a swimmer applying for a very different kind of work. So, yeah, tell me about that transition when you had to interview and go through that
Yeah.
process.
So I asked my sister, who was uh, a manager in the company, but she didn't have any say if they were going to hire me or not. But she knew about the culture and what they were looking for. So we did, speak together. She prepped me. She's like, explained to me what the role was. So I, you know, tried to do my research. So I was prepared when I went for my interview. But uh, you feel you like even though I learned the skills in school but my background was so unusual that I was like, oh my God, they're not gonna want me, you know. And so I was very nervous, but I got the job, and later on I spoke to one of my supervisor. I'm like, why did you take a chance on me? Because I have no qualification other than being a registered nurse, which it's kind of different than being a case manager. And she's like, well, you come from a competitive background, and it shows that you know discipline, that you can be coached, that you're gonna work for what you want, and, work to be good at it. So I was like, oh, so I didn't even like realize that I had like skills or maybe like personality traits that they were looking for. But it was part of me, so I didn't, it's not something you learn.
You talked about the skills that you needed to learn to apply for that case manager role. Tell me about that interview process to actually nail the job, right? So
Yeah.
tell me more about that.
So I did talk to my sister, who was already working for the same company. She was in a manager role, not in the same department, but still like she had knowledge of the culture and, what they were looking for. So I did prep with her quite a bit, and also like looked online, tried to do some research and, try to prepare as best as I can. So I was very nervous because I didn't feel like I had that much to offer or the right skills. Like I know I'm a fast learner. I know I can, I have confidence in myself, but still, it's so different and my background was so unusual that I was still nervous. So I showed up, did my interview, and they offered me the job, and it went it went well, and a few years later, I actually asked one of my supervisor, why did she take a chance on me? Because I didn't really have like the skills on my resume for say, but and she says, well, I really like that you had a competitive background and that you already knew like discipline and knew how to work hard and all of that. I know you were gonna do the same that you did in your competitive background, that you would bring it here in our company. So I was pretty amazed with what she said. I was like, oh,
Yes.
that's true. It can
Uh,
relate.
100%, 100%. I talk about this a lot where we do, as performer and creative, we do have some skills and transferable
Hmm.
skills that for us, they seem like not relevant to another role. That is not necessarily an artistic role or any role in general. But truly, I mean, to your point, she saw the discipline. She saw probably your creativity that you could use in
Hmm.
any and other ways. Um, wow.
Yeah.
Thank Yeah.
No, it's true. And I think all of like the artists, like we think that's all we can do. But if you really think about it, like if you spend a lot of your life perfecting your skills to be a cirque performer, like then why can you not use the same drive to perfect your skills in something else? Like, I think anybody can do anything. You just got to put your mind to it. And
Yeah. Yeah.
I think most of us are very disciplined, very, go-getter. We love to work hard. We like to perform, but it can totally translate into something else.
Yeah. Yeah. You're proof of that.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of us, I think it used to
Yeah.
be scary, like the world outside of Cirque. Like I know I was like, oh, and now when I meet people that are still in Cirque, I'm like, life is great outside of Cirque. There's a life there, and you'll meet,
Yeah.
the good colleagues, and you'll meet good people, and you can still like have a life that you love
Yeah.
outside of Cirque. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, yes, definitely. Um, is there another path, another career path that you would potentially want to explore?
Yeah. Yeah, lately I've been thinking since I got my license back about, going back to why I became a nurse in the first place, which was to be a labor and delivery nurse. So I've been actually in contact with another performer in O that was there at the time. She still performed a little bit. So, and she's a doula here in town. So we've been talking about, the future, and I'm asking question and try to see where I could go next and look at my option. It's not because I'm unhappy in my job, but still like maybe, there's a reason why I became a nurse, and it was to become a labor and delivery nurse. So
Yep.
that's what I'm been kind of like itching a
Mhm.
bit lately about like,
Yeah.
oh, maybe it's something I
Yeah.
want to consider. So
Yes, yes.
yeah.
Well, that's great. And it's and
Yeah.
it's it's okay to want to do something different now, maybe 2 years from now, 5 years. Um,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, definitely. What are the things you needed to learn when you transitioned from Cirque to becoming a nurse? And I'm not talking about necessarily, of course, learning all the clinicals and everything within like the nurse program, but is there anything for yourself that you needed to learn to successfully transition?
Yes, I think I learned to like trust myself and be like more confident in myself. I think, because when you're in Cirque and you perform and you swim. I was a swimmer since I was 5 years old. So that's all I knew. When I was, starting to study as a nurse, I was like, oh, this is different. The more I kept going, the more I gained, confident and okay, I can do it. I can do something else. It's okay. um, so I think learning new thing is good as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
You find different part of yourself and you're like, okay, I can do something else.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, confidence is a big one in career change because
Yes.
you have a new identity.
Yes.
Yeah.
But it's scary, but even I, my old clinical, I was like, okay, just fake it until you feel it. That was like my mindset. Because like you have to be confident, but deep down you're not sure. But it's all
Mhm.
about like, like putting yourself out there and trying. Like, what's the worst that's gonna happen? You're gonna fail, and it's okay. Like you're gonna learn anyway and try again.
Mhm.
So, but
Yep.
it is scary. I talk like it's not scary, but it is. I was, scared the whole time, but
Yeah.
I
Yeah, I think it's okay to be honest that any career transition, not all, but it definitely can be scary. And
mhm.
there's something beautiful after that that can show
Yeah.
up. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, what's something about your new career that feels even more fulfilling than performing ever did?
Uh well, the one part of my current career that I really enjoy is teaching others. So I do a
Yeah.
lot of education in my role right now. Um, I'll teach people who are case manager how to be good case manager or like little like skill sets, and that's when I was a performer, I was the one, yeah, often like teaching the others the choreography, or I was, trying to find ways to make it better. So in my role right now, I'm kind of in the same position a little bit where I like
Mm.
sharing what I know to make your job easier, to support you. So that's that's I think one thing I learned transitioning, that it comes naturally to me. So I did it in Cirque without really understanding why, but now I do it again in my new role. So I'm like, okay, it's probably something I like to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It makes sense now. You tell
Mhm.
yourself,
Yep.
actually, I kind of like to teach people. I'm a great one. I'm a great teacher. I'm a great teacher.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's what I'm probably looking for the most if I transition career again, is really like the, during the delivery process, during the pregnancy, postpartum, all of that, really like to teach women and like empower women uh to make choices for them, like to like there's different paths you can do that,
Yep.
that's I think that's what I'm looking for.
Yes.
Yeah.
Chantal, what advice would you give to someone who's interested in following a similar path and are considering becoming a nurse?
Well, first, make sure you study in the states you want to practice. That's gonna make it a lot easier.
Or the
But no,
country?
just
Or the country?
yeah, or the
That's the
country. Yeah. The funny thing is, I could have practiced anywhere in Canada. It's only Quebec that didn't
Mm,
want. So,
yeah.
but another podcast
Yeah,
for
yeah.
that. No, just go for it. Jump, do it. Like I think it's such a fun, fulfilling career. And nursing, you can do so much different things. I'm the proof of it. You can go work in hospital. If you don't want that, you can work for, office job. You can work for the city. Like there's so many different paths when you become a nurse.
Yep.
It's easy to transition between those if you decide to. So you're
Yeah.
tired of working one place, you can look at something else. So
Yeah.
it's your knowledge is there.
Yep.
It's
It sounds like it opens a lot of doors.
yeah.
Yes, you finished a degree, but then you have a lot of possibilities.
Mm-hmm.
Different.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
And that they tell you in school, but usually when you're in school, you know what you want. Like most of the student, they already know, oh, I want to work, in the ER, or I want to do this, or I want to, like most people, they kind of know,
Yeah.
but all the teacher will tell you, like, there's not, keep an open mind. There's so many things that you don't know that you can do with a nursing degree. And
Yeah.
it's true. If I could even like teach at a school eventually one day, if I decide to as well. So there's
Yeah.
different thing you can do. So,
Mm.
rarely nowadays people will keep the same job for their whole life. So everybody will transition career at least, 2, 3 times in their lifetime. It's not like it used to be. But that's
Yep.
great as well.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Chantal, is there anything else you want to share with us today?
Um, no, just a thanks to all my Cirque girls that cheerlead for me the whole time I was in school, and I miss them. And
Yeah.
yeah, I think that's one thing I miss the most about performing is our little dressing room. But
Yeah.
you know, it's I'm still in Vegas. We still see each other once in a while, so it's
Yeah.
all good. Yeah.
Oh, I love that. Well, thank you so much for being with us today. And yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Recast and Rise. If today's story made a difference, share it with a fellow artist and creative friend. Be sure to subscribe to this podcast and follow me on my socials for tips and tricks to navigate your career change. Until next time, I will see you in the next episode.